Welcome back to the Delaware Way. We continue our conversation now with Lieutenant Governor Bethany Hall-Long. We were talking about opioid addiction specifically, and we've had a couple of people on the program that have been dealing with the state in helping to fight the crisis, and they say there's not enough help, that people come to their symposiums and they're looking for help, and when they send them to get help, they have to wait. It's sometimes 2 and 3 months, and people can die in that, during that wait time. Is the state working on that?
Well, let me step back. There are like 3 tiers here. If you were to talk to our head of public health, Dr. Rattay, and our Secretary Walker, they will tell you that they're coming forth with an excellence model based on the fact that sometimes people are having to wait for certain treatments. And we don't need that. We can't have that. And working with our current Attorney General, we've also worked to address with the members of the General Assembly legislation where insurance cannot be prohibiting folks either. So they can't be denied from the insurance angle, and that they also can get access to a bid if they need a bid, or they can get access to outpatient therapy. You are spot on that we need to have more treatment, both residential, where people reside for 30 days or so for facilitative, beginning of addiction service, or to have those persons out in the community. And so the Behavioral Health Consortium, for which I am chairing, and then Dr. Rattay is chairing the Addiction Action Committee, are coming up with really specific short-term and long-term goals. So the individuals who are having to perhaps wait that valuable week, which we shouldn't have after detoxing, that is the week of vulnerable use. And so for families, because every death is a person, it's a child, it's a lost dream. And so to us, this is really important.
I will say that when we've had town halls in the past, and people have shown up to ask about the opioid problem, and the #1 question is, I wanted to get help from my son. I couldn't get help until he was arrested. Why does he have to be bad to turn good?
Right. And Delaware, I'm glad that you mentioned this, and for your listening audience, has in place some really excellent programs where people should not be turned away. The Heroes Help program, which is where a person can actually go in and work with law enforcement and bifurcate that arrest and go in for immediate treatment, is accessible. And for the viewing audience, if they go to Help Is Here Delaware, under our previous Secretary of Health and our current Secretary of Health, we've really expanded services so people have a clear roadmap where to go, who to call, whether you need outpatient treatment, whether we need to get you inpatient. And so we don't want anyone turned away. You're absolutely correct that it's frustrating for families and parents, because when someone is addicted to a substance and they say they want help, we can't afford to wait a week or 2 weeks. People need help when they need help. And we want to avoid them being in our prison system.
Can a family do it for someone that's addicted?
Not at this point, unless there is a threat to harm to themselves or to others.
Well, addiction is a threat to harm, but it has to be more than that.
And we're talking about that. Our Behavioral Health Consortium is looking at some of those policies around law enforcement and when you can force treatment and not force treatment, and giving people those options. But we in Delaware are ahead of other states in that we are not trying to arrest our way, and not treat this as a disease. This is truly a disease. And so when I, as the chair of Board of Pardons, see a lot of these persons who've been incarcerated or looking for a pardon, it started young as a mental health disorder that went undiagnosed. So you have both the addiction side, the opioid prescribers, but then you also have people medicating often for anxiety and depression. And so we are hoping through the Delaware Way and others, as the new year comes around, as individuals are listening to your program, that they know to turn to Help Is Here Delaware and others if they're feeling down.
And Help Is Here Delaware they find online?
Yes, online, and there's a phone number, a hotline crisis. So if you have a loved one who's experiencing the threat of suicide, and you and I having this conversation is important. People often are embarrassed if they suffer from depression or anxiety or bipolar or schizophrenia. No one should be stigmatized by that. It is a disease just like cancer or others. And so we want individuals in our state to feel comfortable both for the mental health issue and substance use disorder, not to be embarrassed, because it affects our economy, it affects our children, it affects our education system.
Yeah, it's a whole cultural change. I understand it's a big thing, and I'm glad you're on the case. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming in. Lieutenant Governor Bethany Hall-Long. When we come back, bus service at Rodney Square is stopped, but there is a whole lot of people that are trying to bring it back. We'll talk about it when the Delaware Way continues.